The band Rush have gotten back together with a chick drummer. I'm going to talk about that, talk about the insane ticket prices, and a whole lot more on the first ever John Leon Under the Hat podcast. Here we go, baby. Woohoo! What is up, everybody? What is good? This is the first episode of the Under the Hat podcast. Here we go. I'm going to do this every week. I'm going to touch on all sorts of subjects, talk about them. We'll get things going. We'll probably just have a few viewers at first and see where this goes. Some will like it, some will hate it. And I'm just going to roll with this and have some fun with it. Part of the reason I'm doing this is I've got not only is Wizzard ramping up and doing a bunch more over the next couple of years, but I've got some other projects in the works as well. So I'm going to be basically talking about a lot of my musical endeavors in kind of interwoven with this. But I'm going to have all sorts of subjects. I'm going to talk about world subjects, stuff on the music front, and just my views on things, etc. And I'll also probably be doing some music segments playing. So either going over music I've already recorded that people are familiar with, or just going over different stuff, experimental stuff with the pedal board. And I might even be doing some food reviews in the upcoming episodes. So it should be pretty interesting. I'm just going to play around with this and have fun and what the hell. So I want to start by basically speaking about kind of the first thing that came to mind. I've got a list of things each week I'm going to probably talk about. I want to talk about kind of an interesting thing for me because of the level of fandom I have. But I want to talk about the band Rush getting back together without Neil Peart, who passed away tragically in 2020. And I have some thoughts on it, and I wanted to talk about them. This is kind of something that goes very deep for me because the reason that I became a musician is the band Rush. I would say more than any other. I mean, there's some other influences, Iron Maiden and you know, a few other bands that also kind of got me to that point of, you know, wanting to be a musician. But the band that changed my life, that literally, you know, made me kind of just be hell-bent on doing music and nothing else forever, was Rush and my discovery of them. And also their music, and especially Neil's lyrics, got me through adolescence. There was a lot of difficult stuff I went through. I left home early at 16. I was homeless off and on. Really had to learn to survive on my own in that time and survive it with a lot of, you know, dark stuff around me, you know, addictions, lots of, you know, people that were destructive, a lot of, you know, temptation. And I had my own demons that I was slaying. I had a lot of things from my childhood I was dealing with. And, you know, everyone goes through this. But, you know, in those years from 16 to 2021, that was a volatile time for me. And I was drinking heavily and really on the edge of what could have been early death or, you know, a really dark path for the rest of my life. And one of the most important things that I think saw me through that allowed me to manifest positive energy and allowed me to see a vision of a future for myself was the lyrics of Neil Peart, channeled through Rush's music and the power of the emotional vortex that is. Rush fans know what that means. So for me, Neil Peart, not only is he an incredible drummer, of course, but for me, Neil Peart is first and foremost the lyricist of Rush, and one of the greatest poets ever. I've said maybe the greatest poet of the 20th century. His lyrics are poetry, and they tap into something, a very deep place that really helped shape who I became into my adult life, especially as a musician, and gave me that drive to fight through the undertows that were all around me. And so Rush's music, the roots of that are so deep for me and inspired so many things in me, both as a player, a lover of music, and a lover of the bass guitar, and I used to air guitar to hemispheres every morning before school, and air bass, and the reason I never played with a pick was because Geddy didn't play with a pick, and so I always taught myself with my fingers. And it's funny, as you guys will see as I go through playing, you'll see that I play guitar with my fingers as well. All the stuff you've heard of White Wizzard that I've done and other stuff, I use my fingernails and I filed them, and I developed a style writing on guitar, being a fingerstyle bass player. And all the roots of that come from, me basically at 16 wanting to be Geddy Lee. And when I started playing bass, when I got my first bass, I was like, I'm never using a pick. I'm going to use my fingers. That was like a thing for me that I was determined to do. And I was completely self-taught. I taught myself everything. I got my first bass, and I remember Jacob's Ladder by Rush was like the first thing I learned. Just dun, 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 dun. It's like 4 chords. And it was I'll never forget how excited I was when I got my first bass line down, and was like, and it just became infectious. And so the music of Rush, so important, but the lyrics, for me, in a lot of ways, and I love Geddy and Alex, and they're all very equal, but Neil in a lot of ways was like half of Rush for me, because not only was he the drummer, and what a drummer he was, he's so lyrical in his drumming, he was the lyricist, and he was the foundation of the words that, look, I mean, Geddy did an incredible job transposing those words and making them resonate throughout the music in a very emotional way. So that's a very important element too. Geddy was the transducer of that. But still, those lyrics and the words and kind of what they represented to me, it's a really big deal. So flash forward to now. I've gone through over the years, I've had many bands influence me on a deep level since then, but it always comes back down to Rush. Anyone that knows me, I've had the 2112 pin on my hat for 20 some odd years. I also have that tattoo woven into my dragon on my arm, kind of subliminally. So I carry a lot of the, that what the lyrics of 2112 were, what they represent, the individual against the mass, the non-censorship of individualist expression and art, the rebellion against all of those types of things, censorship and the stifling of the self. Those were things that I identify with still to this day. And so there's a bit of a kind of like that gonzo thing that Hunter Thompson had. There's a little bit of that 2112 in the way that I live my life, like my philosophy of how I view the world and what inspires me and everything. So when Neil passed away, I've never been affected. I mean, I was very deeply affected when Robin Williams died and Ronnie James Dio and more recently Ozzy. There's definitely been times, and I've written songs. Shooting Star, I wrote for Ronnie Dio. I wrote a song for Ozzy more recently, an acoustic song not many people heard. But, I'm always, when something really affects me, I usually will write something as a conduit for that. And I did write a song for Neil that I have not released. I kind of put it out to a few friends, and a couple people here and there have heard it. But I don't know if I'll release it or not. It's called To Touch the Sun. But Neil's passing, it happened right before the pandemic. So what a crazy time that was. It was almost like I was devastated by Neil's passing. It was a really weird time. People that know me, that Christmas Eve, my car was stolen. A lot of people don't know my classic, the one in the Chasing Dragons video, my GTO, was stolen. And it's a long story, but it was gone for like a month, and it actually was recovered. Everything in the trunk was gone, including my Hamer bass that everyone knows me from, that white bass. Never seen it again. Some of my stage clothes and a lot of other things, a few pedals, but those are all gone forever. But I got the car back. Still have it. It's crazy. It was a crazy thing. But right after that, Neil passed, and then the pandemic came. So it was just the most crazy 2 or 3 months. I'll never forget it. And my wallet was in the car when it was stolen. I remember just being in this really destitute place where it was like all this crazy bad stuff had happened, and then Neil Peart had passed. And so it took me, I had to process that over the entire pandemic, really. It came to me in waves, but it was just, I was deeply affected by that. It was just, the world was a different place without his presence. And I also was really upset with myself because I lived very close. I was living in Santa Monica when Rush did their final show with Neil in 2015. And I'd seen them on tours before, and Geddy had sounded kind of shaky on Clockwork Angels. And I remember thinking, I'll catch them on the next run. You know, I figured Rush were going to tour for another 10, 15 years. So I had no idea that was their last show. I was probably laying in my apartment watching television, or, you know, doing something ridiculous when they were playing that show. And I always regretted that I didn't go to that, because I totally could have jumped on my motorcycle and been to the Forum in 15, 20 minutes. So I also carried that kind of regret that, like, wow. But at the same time, for me, when Neil went, like, that's the end of Rush. Like, I know that Geddy and Alex had Rush before with John Rutsey, and they did one album. But the Rush that I identify with, that is Rush in all aspects, is Rush with Neil, Geddy, and Alex. And again, Neil for me is pretty much 50% of the band in a lot of ways. Just for me personally, other people may see it differently. That's fine. So when Rush, you know, the last few years, Geddy and Alex have been doing their thing. Geddy released his bass book, and Alex has been making guitar pedals, and they've been selling their beer and doing their occasional videos, and that's great, you know, and I wanted them to do music again. I felt like these guys should be doing music. Like, that's what they're on earth to do. So when they announced they were getting back together with the drummer that they're doing it with now, she's a great drummer. I watched her stuff, and I was like, wow, this is pretty wild. But the thing that even though I was happy to see them doing it, the thing that I had to grapple with, and I'm kind of at the other end of it now, but at first I was having a really hard time with them calling it Rush. I was feeling at first like, man, shouldn't they call it Lee Lifeson, or just an evening of Rush music? At first I had a big problem with it, but I'm sure management, I mean, look, ticket sales were just not going to be the same if they called it anything else. And I know technically Rush was Alex and Geddy before Neil came along, even though it's kind of a preposterous argument at this point. Rush is Neil, Geddy, and Alex for me, and always will be. But at first I was pretty upset that they were calling it Rush. I kind of felt like it was a business decision, and that they were doing it solely for the sake of merchandising and ticket sales. And it felt a little bit off for me, I've got to be honest. Now, I was in the minority. I posted some feelings about that, and Rush fans were just like, blah, 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 don't go then, F you, blah, blah, blah. And I found that a little odd, because I feel like that even though I've come to a place where I now am okay with it, I figured, you know what, everyone knows what that Rush, I mean, everyone knows what Rush was. It's not like, you know, nobody knows that Rush was Rush with Neil. It's kind of like, fine, you know, go out and go for it and have a good time, and all of that. My main issue is the prices. That's a whole other argument that has to do with concerts in general that I'll get into. But my final feelings are on it, you know, like, hey man, go for it. I just saw the recent version of them on the Juno Awards doing Finding My Way, and I was like, you know what? They sound really good. And, Anika, she sounds like a really, really, really good fit, and I think they're going to do really well. I think the shows are going to be great. And I'm happy for them. I'm happy to see Getty and Alex back out there, though there is a big asterisk next to it for me. And so I came full circle to that. But I will say I was a little shocked that Rush fans were so... I feel like everybody should have at least paused and thought about that. Like, is this Rush? I just felt like, I know Rush fans want to see them out there again, but at the same time, I just felt like everyone was a little overzealous. I was getting attacked by everyone when I was just raising this point. And I feel like it's like, wow, for me personally, it's a really big deal to accept that. And it took me a couple of months to really philosophize and think about it and search my emotions. So I've gotten to a point where I'm supportive of it, but I'm still not going to go. Me personally, it's still not Rush. I think it's going to be great. I will probably watch what they do on YouTube just to check it out because, I'm curious. But my main issue is ticket prices. I really don't agree with the ticket prices on the tour. And I understand that it's a premium and it's Rush but man, I grew up on going to concerts for $30. I remember we were all pissed when they became 50. I mean, it's gotten absurd. I'm sorry, but I don't even know how much money's going to the bands, but I gotta say Robert Smith from The Cure, when he stood up to this shit and he said, you know what, F you guys, you're not charging my fans this much money. I get for the first 20 rows or whatever, fine. If you want to be in the front, and you got to pay a premium, fine. I still think those tickets are too much too, but I get the premium price there, that's understandable. And, it's a first come, first serve. Everybody vie for them, when tickets go on sale, all that. And if someone wants to pay a premium for that, I understand it. But for the general fans, the prices are insane. And it's not just the Rush concert. This is how I feel about all concerts. I barely go to concerts anymore because I've got a 4K projector. Everything ends up on YouTube. And I don't feel like it's worth it to me. I feel like the cost of concerts is so out of control that it's bullshit. When it's getting to a point where you could buy a guitar for what you would pay to go see the band, I'm sorry, but fuck that. And I love live music, and I grew up on it. And I've been to incredible concerts that were life-changing moments for me. But at this point, I'm like, you know what, man? I don't want to spend the money. There's a principal element there for me. So that's why I'm not going to go. And that's a topic that I'll probably touch on here or there, is just the live music experience in general, and why I think it's not what it used to be. And it's not just due to nostalgia or getting older or anything. I mean, I really honestly think that between the price points and what you're getting, I think it's just you're better off most of the time just waiting till it ends up on YouTube, filmed in HD, and throwing it on with a killer stereo system and snuggling with your chick or your pet or whatever and watching it that way. It's much more enjoyable. I got to be honest. Sporting events are like that too. Sporting events are out of control. Like the cost, I'm a big football fan, but I used to be a season ticket holder for the 49ers when I was in the Bay Area and, in the 90s. And tickets were still expensive then, but now they're just insane. I could sit, watch it on full HD. Football's made for TV anyway. That's why it blew up so much when color TV came out in the 60s. Football is perfect to watch on television. So it's aside from, going out and just being with your friends or whatever, it's a fun thing. But at what point does the cost and the price point just become asinine? And I think I'm all about economic growth, but I feel like everything, real estate, ticket prices, they've just gotten exponentially out of control. And I think rents, I think that's a lot of the reasons we have homeless problems, and just a lot of my musician friends that can't afford concerts and stuff. I feel bad for them. It's messed up. And even if I can afford it, I just won't do it. So that's my rant on Rush. I wanted to kind of open with some discussions on that because it's a pretty near and dear subject to me, and that's my feelings on it. So there you go. I'm going to segue now to some other topics, and then every week I'm going to have an album I recommend. So I'm going to do an album recommendation of the week and talk about it a bit. Lastly, I'm going to do a record review or a record recommendation of the week. Every week I want to recommend an album for people to listen to, and a lot of times I'm gonna recommend stuff that's not heavy metal or hard rock, because in my opinion, you got to get out of the high school quad as a listener. A lot of people, they never leave that, oh, this is cool, this is not thing from when they were 15 and they were in the high school quad with their fucking social group and like, well, Depeche Mode's gay, or, anything that's not metal is gay, or whatever it was that people used to think. You got to get out of that and realize there's great music in every genre. I don't care what it is. Every genre has incredible music, and you got to seek it out. You got to be willing to open your mind and open your palette and expand, because music is it opens so many doors within your perceptions and within your soul. It's like you expand as a person and grow through each musical door you open, man. And I think there's so many incredible things out there to discover. So I'm going to jump all over the map with my recommendations. I have a lot of different genres that I really weave between that really influence me. So for my first recommendation, I'm going to kind of go into the 70s. Now there's a lot of guys that have heard this record, and it does fall into the hard rock realm. This isn't too off the beaten path of what genre my band's in, but I still want to recommend this if you haven't heard it. And if you have, go listen to it again. But one of my favorite records from the 70s that I don't think gets talked about enough, it does in a cult, way a little bit, but it's a fascinatingly awesome record, and I highly recommend it, is a record called Captain Beyond. It's the first debut record. They did one more, but the debut was the one to get. It's just called Captain Beyond. It was recorded in 1972, and it features Rod Evans on vocals, who was the original singer of Deep Purple. Deep Purple did 3 records with Rod Evans before Ian joined, before they did in rock. And I highly recommend, as a kind of a secondary piece to Captain Beyond, listening to the Deep Purple record that's just called Deep Purple. It was actually the 3rd one. They did Shades of Deep Purple and the Book of Taliesin first. And then the last one they did before they segued to the sound that was in rock with Ian was an album called Just Deep Purple. And I recommend it. There's actually some killer shit on that album. It's this nice juxtaposition of psychedelia in the 60s and what they would become within rock. It's right in the middle of that, and it's a really cool bridge piece record. And you get to hear Rod right before he does Captain Beyond. Now, Captain Beyond, the record was actually recorded at Sunset Sound, the same studio that 6 years later Van Halen would record in, probably the same room. And it's a great sounding room, and I think the recording for 1972 is pretty fucking badass, especially for not being a major label artist. Because only the really major artists had access to great studios and engineers back then. It was tough to really get, that's why a lot of those older albums, those obscure bands, they don't sound nearly as good because they weren't working on the world-class equipment of the day. Deep Purple, by the time they did Machine Head with Martin Birch, was like on the most killer shit. Zeppelin was on the most killer shit. By then, Sabbath was. But a band like Captain Beyond, they, to get into Sunset Sound and do it how they did it, it's a phenomenal sounding record. The bass tone on that record, if you're a bass player or you like old school fuzzy hard rock guitar, and you love those three aforementioned bands, Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and Black Sabbath, go get the Captain Beyond record, listen to it, comment. If you know the record, tell me what you think in the comments. If you don't, go listen to it and then tell me what you think in the comments. And that's an album you got to listen to loud. Don't listen to it casually. It requires a focused listen. Do it on a road trip. Turn it up really loud, or turn it up really loud in the morning when you're working out or you're just going for a run or whatever, and really rock that album out, or on your motorcycle in your headphones. That's a life-changing record. It's one of those game-changing albums. And so that's my album recommendation of the week. All right, so now I want to talk about my favorite bass line ever. I absolutely adore this bass line. I adore the song as well. And it's a song that sadly doesn't get mentioned enough. I think, in the great catalog of the Scorpions, especially the Uli Jon Roth era Scorpions, I think this is like their perfect song. I think this song is so well written and has the most beautiful melodic structure, especially in the bass line. Not only the amazing technical prowess of the bass line, but the feel of the melody and how it works. And Uli Jon Roth did a masterful job of playing guitar against the melody, and then Klaus, the singer of the Scorpions, did an incredible job of doing the vocal melodies on top of all the other melodies. It's so melodic. And they kept it short, which is pretty cool too. It's not a long song. But the song is called Longing for Fire. It's actually the ninth track, the second to last track on the album In Trance. And In Trance, when I was pretty much all through my life since that album came into my life, was the Scorpions album for me. It's a really special record. It's got this perfect blend of the hard rock that was to come, but a lot of psychedelia and almost dreamscape-like qualities in its melodic passages and the way that it's executed. It's got this super surrealness to it that for me, there's no other record like it. It's a very unique album. And we all know what the Scorpions became, but this was a really interesting juxtaposition for the band. And I think this song in particular is really special. So I'm gonna play parts of it and then go through the bass line and talk about it. So this is the main hook riff after a quick little intro. Now right there, even before the vocal melody comes in, what a bass line. So basically, what he's doing there is he's doing this great, it starts out with just this. It's this great, just melodic hook right out of the gate. What a cool bass line that is. And he just keeps repeating it, just the. And then he goes right down to this next melodic passage, so I'll play that, and let's listen to what Klaus does with the vocal melody as they roll through these two parts. Such a nice vocal melody. I mean, what a great melodic passage that is. And the bass is holding it all down. After that first part, he just goes down to this, and then, what a great melodic piece that is. There's just so much going on. It's extremely busy, but it's carrying the entire hook of the song in a really beautiful way that you rarely hear a bass do. I just absolutely adore every aspect of this song. You know, and then it goes back up to the, and then, so we'll listen to the rest of that, and then it has these great changes. It's just fucking phenomenal. It's not your night, this different night, one day, she's lost in time. I mean, that vocal melody by Klaus there is just beautiful. That na 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 na. So it's just all after. What a nice hook that is. It's just this great melody going on with the bass while the vocals are just, you know, it's just, these are the root notes, just na 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 na. So, but that bass line is just, you know, it's just, what a great songwriting clinic that is on just, again, melody, vocal melody working against the other instruments. And I just think it's one of the greatest pieces of music ever put together in rock, for sure. So yeah, let's keep listening and then go to this incredible lead break that has probably the most insane, I mean, the bass line of the lead break is just absolutely nuts. So let's listen to this. This change. So let's look at that. That bass line is nuts. So, you know, Uli kicks into this really badass lead break, and then the bass line comes in, and what a bass line it is. So it's just basically, that's what it does. It does that, keeps repeating that. But what a crazy like bass line that is to have underneath that lead. So it's just absolutely phenomenal, and that's pretty much all the parts of the song. It just ends on a. So it stays in that melodic place as far as the chord, the root notes go, but there's just so much going on. Anybody who's a bass player, I highly recommend going and studying this song, even if it's not something you're gonna, you know, play in a cover band or something you would ever play. Just go, just for the sake of your own, you know, playing, and it makes you better just playing this bass line. Francis was such an underrated bass player. You know, rest his soul. He passed away recently, and you know that of course hit me pretty hard because he's a really big influence on me as a bass player, and a lot of people don't cite him enough. And I always tell them, go listen to Longing for Fire. Like, if you want to hear a fucking, I mean, it's up there with some of the best Entwistle, the best Geddy Lee, the best Steve Harris, the best Geezer Butler. Go down the list. As far as like rock bass players go, Francis was up there with the best. I just think he, you know, served the song more as the band progressed, because they became a more radio-friendly band, and he did what the songs needed without being too busy. But in their early days, when he was having more freedom, I think him and Uli were kind of the more, you know, kind of free spirits in the band, and they brought that kind of progressive element. And I think Rudolph and Klaus were more like, you know, wanting to write radio-friendly songs and grow the band in America and stuff. So this era with Uli is really beloved because it's got that mixture of both of those elements working symbiotically. You've got the more structured songs, like even on the song In Trance, right? That's a much more like straightforward, structured song. But then you have songs like this that are just like, wow, where did that come from? Or Night Lights, and a few of the ballads, Life's Like a River and stuff like that, where they really are allowed to kind of explore. And you have this great producer in Dieter Dirks that really did a great job pulling it all together. It's such a good record. Highly recommended to go get In Trance and throw it on in entirety. But for those of you bass players that really want to learn a really cool melodic structure, Longing for Fire, sit down, learn it, and go through it. I think you will be happy that you did. All right. All right, now I'm going to talk about what I am doing musically right now. For starters, White Wizzard news. My rock band, White Wizzard, heavy metal band. We just played a big music festival and debuted our new lineup there. We're going to be launching some video of that soon, and we're going to have a reel put together. And we've got a third new single coming out, and then we'll basically be pushing those 3 new singles out there. The first 2 singles are called Pay the Fiddler and Embrace the Hate. They are currently on YouTube. I will have links below. You can go check them out. A third single called Night Lights is going to be released in the coming weeks. And from there, we will be officially announcing the new lineup of the band. And basically, we are now mixing a full-length record. And the full-length record is actually a concept album that I've done in the spirit, again, of Neil Peart. It tells a story. I'm going to be releasing comic books with each song. I'm going to be writing a novel that's going to be attached to the album that'll come out eventually thereafter. And there's going to be all sorts of cool stuff. And then basically from there, we are going to be trying to get the right distribution for the record. And a booking agent and management for the band so we can start pushing out there in 2027. So I'll be doing this podcast weekly. I'll also be discussing the band. I'll be doing shorts as well, and I'll keep everybody abreast. So everybody subscribe to this YouTube page. This is the number one thing. Our Facebook was hacked a couple years ago. We had a massive Facebook that we weren't able to get back. It was a nightmare. It was through an old email of mine, and Meta was impossible to deal with. It's a long story. I'll talk about it in an episode soon. But basically, that's where things sit. The YouTube is the number one way. I've got my Instagram page, my personal one. I do updates there as well. And basically, we're just going to start growing our social media again and start building to getting out there in 2027. We're going to try to get to Europe. We're going to try to get to other countries, back to Japan. Of course, do more stuff in the States. We got a great lineup, a great group of guys, and I'm really excited. I've been working really hard producing and engineering these next 2 releases. Basically, we've got an EP coming out that these singles will be on. There'll be other singles as well. Those are more straightforward White Wizzard singles. And then we've got this really deep concept record. And then who knows from there? Hopefully we'll be recording another album after that in 2027. So a lot more to come. I'll be talking more about the new lineup. Hopefully I'll get the new musicians on one at a time and you guys can meet them. We'll talk about the upcoming stuff and what we're hoping to accomplish with White Wizzard. I've also got another project that's kind of my own that I'm playing guitar and fronting that I will be also debuting and talking about soon. I'm going to go through songs. I'm going to do some jamming. I'm going to, go through my pedal board and talk tech geeky shit with you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, some food reviews. I might even do some cooking shit. So every episode's going to have different stuff. This was the first one I wanted to kind of start with Rush because Rush is what started me as a musician. So I wanted to talk about it. They just played the Juno Awards and it was kind of good to get that out there and talk about it a bit. So there'll be much more to come. And so stay tuned, man. Much more podcasts. This was number 1, baby.